Welcome to the Cardinals Locker Room Show, presented by Santan Ford & Gilbert, home of the Tim Hovick Satisfaction Guarantee.
Come on, man! Come on!
Let's get back to the stadium for analysis and exclusive interviews from the Cardinals locker room. Here's Dave Pasch, A.Q. Shipley, and Paul Calvisi.
The Cardinals drop another home game, their fourth straight defeat at State Farm Stadium. They fall to 3-7 on the year after a 2-0 start. 41-22 the final as the Cardinals lose to San Francisco. Jacoby Brissett in defeat threw an NFL record 47 completions on 57 attempts, 452 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Trey McBride, 10 catches, 115 yards and a touchdown. Michael Wilson, 15 catches. He had 22 in the first 9 games. 15 grabs for 185 yards, the 16th most in franchise history. Sonny Randall with 256 yards back in 1962. That's the Cardinal record. Brock Purdy threw 3 touchdown passes. 2 to George Kittle. Christian McCaffrey had 1. McCaffrey also had 2 rushing touchdowns in the Niners win. Let's go to Paul Calvisi now in the Cardinals locker room.
All right, we'll get to your numbers in the box score. Just tell us about the numbers on the scoreboard and what was most glaring today.
It's a loaded question. I feel like offensively, I don't know what the stats look like, but I feel like offensively I had a feeling, I know maybe it wasn't objective, but I had a subjective feeling that we were out there playing really good football. Obviously, we had the fumble, 2 interceptions, and you can't turn the ball over against a good team. But I feel like we never had an issue moving the ball up and down the field. Well,
you're right. Over 400 passing yards. Jacoby Brissett had an NFL record 47 completions in this game. He was obviously seeing the field despite the interceptions, right?
For sure. I think, the interception, there could have been a miscommunication where he thought Elijah was going to come back to the ball, and maybe Elijah didn't feel, the corner driving on the ball. But, yeah, he's like, I can't say enough good things about Jacoby, and he's fun to play with. He's leadership, communication, it's no surprise that he can go out there and complete 47 passes because the week-to-week with him is phenomenal. The communication, he sends me clips, nightly about how he sees certain routes run, and, we just go over the details. And so when you're detailed up, it allows you to go out there and play fast versus any coverage.
When he hangs in the pocket, I mean, how crucial is that in the whole equation of trying to get the downfield passing game going?
Yeah, for sure. That's one of our, JG talks about, that's one of our, ways that we evaluate. Like, we have 2 buckets. We have motor and violence. And under our violence bucket, one of our evaluations in the quarterback position is stand and deliver. And so, he does a phenomenal job of sitting in the pocket, even when there's pressure in front of his face, and taking a hit and giving us a chance. And as a wideout, that's really all you can ask for is opportunity.
The other number that's glaring is the 17 penalties. Yeah. There were 7 combined in the last 2 games. Yeah. What happened?
I don't know. We had every week we go through our scouting report of the refs that who are calling and officiating our game, and we knew collectively that these refs were a high flag crew, and ultimately we just didn't play clean enough football. Whether you can argue about if some of the calls are good or not, we have to take onus and just play cleaner.
Tell us about your game. I mean, they talk about flow state, which is you guys talk about. It's a new term I learned this year, and it's basically boils down to playing and not thinking. Did you achieve that today?
For sure, yeah. I think I haven't had a game like that since high school. So I'm just that was regardless of the outcome of the game. That was I feel like a big milestone for myself, and I'm gonna be proud of myself because it's hard to get catches in the league, let alone go for, I don't even know how many yards I had, but go for that many.
Well, I guess I should tell you, 15 catches for $185, and the 15 catches second in team history. That's more than 100 years worth of football right there. JG mentioned you had improved your route running. Yeah. What else? What else was part of the formula today for you?
I think for me it was just, I feel like it was a big, I'm not going to say make or break moment, but I've been here for 3 years and I feel like I haven't been able to produce at the level that I wanted to. And, a lot of that is because my role prior to this game was, I wasn't the #1 receiver, and I accepted that role, and I knew going in most games I wasn't going to get as many opportunities as I was in this game, and so, but if you keep working hard, the laws of nature have a funny way of giving you exactly what you deserve, and I feel like today was one of those moments where the opportunity was at my doorstep, and it was going to be on me whether I was going to show up and show what I could do or go the other way and not perform. And I had 18 targets. If I didn't show up to go perform today, that performance could have looked like 18 targets, 6 catches. Right. But I decided when I woke up this morning that I was going to give everything I had to this game, and normally I feel like when I do that, when I genuinely try my best and give my best, the result normally looks like what I want it to look like.
You prove anything to yourself? I'm guessing outside Arizona, a lot of people are looking at numbers like, wow. Yeah. How about you?
I'm going to be honest and say, yeah. I think I haven't been able to have that type of success at the NFL level, so I think there's a little bit of doubt in every person's mind, and I'm happy that I was able to sort of prove myself right, and also kind of, I'm not going to say surprise myself, but just validate that I am actually as good as I've thought I've been, as good as I think I am, that I've been these last 3 years. I just needed the right opportunity.
Well, it's got to be gratifying if nothing else, right? I mean, you told us in the Big Red Rage a couple of weeks ago you've had really good games, you thought, on film, but you only had a couple of targets, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's the tough part about playing receivers. Sometimes you can't, I'm not going to say sometimes, a lot of times, or pretty much all the time, you can't hang your hat on what the statistics look like. Because, like I said, I've played really, really good games where I've had 1 catch for 11 yards. I've also played decent games where I've had maybe a couple catches for 50 or 60 yards. Like, to me, it more so looks like what the tape looks like and what do you do when the opportunities come your way.
So you had 22 catches coming in. You had 15 today. So appreciate it. It was a pleasure to watch.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
There you go, Michael Wilson, guys.
What a great interview. He was so thoughtful. He always is. And I like the fact that he said, I'm going to enjoy what I accomplished today, because the better he plays, the better the team plays. I mean, A.Q. is a former player. I'm sure that, sometimes you guys might say something that you think fans want to hear when it's about team. But, Wolf would say a lot of times, play for yourself, because when you play for yourself, you ultimately better the team.
100%. You have to play for yourself, and you have to put your best performance on tape, and then that will hopefully echo down the line, and everybody else will put theirs on, and that will result in a winning performance. But I think the biggest thing that has to happen is everybody's got to put their best performance out there right now, because not only are you trying to play to win the game, but you're also playing for your job. There's going to be a lot of change next year. Anytime you have a losing season, you have to look at the roster, and it'll always be that way, and it's tough to look at it that way when there's still 7 more games remaining. But the reality is the reality, and here we are. And when you look at the rest of this division, especially with everybody being at the top of the NFC for the most part, this team looks like it's obviously on the outside looking in, so a lot of these guys are really playing for their jobs.
You said to me, we were down on the field watching Michael Wilson, that this is a big moment for him. He acknowledged that. He just said that hey, this is an opportunity for me to show up big, and I proved something to myself. I validated what I believe about myself. Maybe this will unlock him, because he was a 3rd-round pick, wasn't a 1st-rounder, but he's not a 6th-rounder. And overall, he just said it, his numbers have been disappointing for where he was drafted, but he got a shot to be the #1 receiver today, and because, obviously, of the situation, he got a lot more opportunities because they were throwing the ball all the time. But even early in the game, he had 6 catches in, like, the first 18 minutes. He had that huge catch on the touchdown drive. You feel like this was the best Michael Wilson you've seen?
Hands down, not even a question. I mean, obviously the numbers speak to itself, and you can talk about all the things he does in the run game, but at the end of the day, if you're a receiver, we want to see what you can do as a receiver. And today, he put a lot of good stuff on tape, and some of these performances like this, when you go out and have a performance like this, not only might it catapult your own performance and your own confidence, this might catapult your career for another 10 years, because regardless of what happens here, you can't take away what happened today on the field, and those numbers are crazy. Those are really good numbers, and to have almost 200 yards receiving, the amount of receptions that he had, and it was and they weren't like little 5-yard catches. They were all down the field. He made the one over the middle with the, goes up and climbs the ladder with his hands. I mean, he played great today, and I think he proved. I mean, obviously the question mark coming in was, can he be a number one? He proved he can be a number one.
Basically 12 yards a catch, 15 for 185. And had that 34-yarder, again, that led to that first Cardinal touchdown. Marvin Harrison Jr. had appendicitis, so had to take his appendix out on Monday. There is some hope that he'll be back for next week against Jacksonville. Trey McBride had a 100-yard day. The Cardinals never really got a chance to run the ball after that first drive. Remember, they ran the ball pretty well first few plays, but then they got behind 13-0. When I say they ran the ball the first few plays, it was 7-0 at that point because San Francisco returned the opening kickoff to the 1, and Christian McCaffrey punched it in. So 16 seconds to come off the clock, and the Cardinals were already trailing. But they did run the ball well early, and then after that they just started throwing it. And again, Brissett setting the NFL record for completions with 47. We're still awaiting Jonathan Gannon. His press conference has not even started yet, so it's going to be a while before we hear from JG. Let's talk about what we saw from San Francisco. This was a team that disappointed in 2024. The expectations again in 2025 were this would be one of the better teams in the NFL. They have lost some key players to injury, Warner, Bosa. Ayuk isn't back yet. Did you see a San Francisco team that you think can be dangerous today? Or hard to say?
I think that the biggest thing that's going to hold them back is their defensive injuries. I think they lived and died by the fact that Nick Bosa could create pressure by himself and create opportunities for everybody else up front on the defensive line. And Fred Warner was able to cover up everything. He's sideline to sideline player. In my opinion, he's the best linebacker in football, and in my opinion, he might be the best linebacker in the last 10 years, right? And so when you lose two players of that caliber, that defense clearly does not look the same. They've let some really good players out of the building in terms of Dre Greenlaw and Hufanga, who have both gone on to have really good years over in Denver with a really good defense over in Denver. So they're probably kicking themselves a little bit at the fact that they let some of their better players out and seeing what they're doing elsewhere. But I think that is the Achilles heel of that team. Now, offensively, I think they don't run it like they used to run it, but they're still able to scheme it up with what Kyle's able to do. They're still missing Brandon Ayuk. If somehow they can get him back, they have as talented of an offense as there is in this league.
They are 7-4, so they're a game back of Seattle in the loss column for second. The Rams are 8-2. Matthew Stafford had 2 touchdowns. Sam Darnold threw 4 picks, and Seattle still had a chance to win the game at the end. But the Rams hold on. You feel like, based on the standings in the NFC West, that's reality, that the Rams are the best team, followed by Seattle and then San Francisco?
I was interested to see this game today between L.A. and Seattle to see who the better team was, and it kind of proved exactly what I thought was going to be. And listen, I think when the difference between the two top teams in San Francisco right now is the defense. Both those teams in L.A. and Seattle have great defenses. And as you just mentioned, 4 turnovers and still have a chance to win it at the end. That's all because of that defense. That's happened a couple times this year. They turned it over against the Cardinals last week. They turned it over against Houston in the night game earlier this season. And then offensively, they got a ton of weapons, so they're able to always stay in it because of their defense. And L.A. is very much the same thing, except the fact that Matthew Stafford's having a unbelievable year. I mean, he's head and shoulders above everybody in the quarterback category. And when you look at those two teams, yes, I think they're head and shoulders above, but I think what separates those two versus this San Francisco team is the defense.
Stafford today, as I mentioned, 2 touchdowns. Passing yards only about $130, but they won the game. Kyron Williams had a big game, and the Rams are right now atop the NFC West. The Cardinals, meanwhile, fall to 3-7, and to have any chance at the postseason, you probably got to win out. Maybe you could stomach one more loss, but and the chances of that happening with all the injuries very slim, obviously. The Cardinals still have 7 games left, 4 of those on the road. Still have to go to Houston and Tampa, Cincinnati and L.A. You mentioned the home game against the Rams. They also have Atlanta here and then Jacksonville next week. And, again, once JG joins us, which still may be a while because his press conference with the local media has not started yet, let's bring Paul in here. Paul is, I don't know if Paul's done talking to players, just waiting for coach as well. But, Paul, give us your view on this game from where you were standing since you were the closest to the field.
You know, we talked about it pregame at length about the absence of Mack Wilson Sr. and everything he did week 3 at the 49ers, right, where that was a really tightly contested game. And they obviously got Mac Jones in that Niners offense under wraps for the most part. That week 3 game, Mack Wilson Sr. had a dozen tackles. He had a TFL. He had 2 passes defense. He had that jack stomp blowed up hit on CMC on 4th and goal that sort of set a tone, right? And maybe even more important than all that was, you know, his experience being able to call a defense, get everyone aligned, the assignments against Kyle Shanahan. It's so vital. Buda Baker talked about it, the calls within the calls because of everything they do. And A.Q. broke down that Niners offense real well on Game Plan this week, JG's TV show. And so, yes, it was about tackling, which was missing at times in Seattle, obviously. Yes, it's about gap integrity, and a lot of guys cited that on film and in the Seattle loss and said, man, especially the D-line is really salty coming into this game. But a lot of it, I think, you know, when they're able to get Christian McCaffrey into space and do so effectively, especially in the red zone, and he was wide open at times, and just some of that play calling and play design. You know, Gannon talked about it all week, the details that the Niners specialize in, no matter who's in the game, no matter where they stand in the depth chart. And there's been no team more injured than the 49ers this year. You know, the details are typically there, and all you have to do is look at the penalty department in the box score, 17-1. You know, they just don't have the self-inflicted. You can't beat yourself and then expect to typically beat a Kyle Shanahan team. A lot of it boiled down, and that was sort of my takeaway on the sideline just watching it.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, the 17 penalty still is just inexcusable. And 7 the previous 2 games combined. Some of it, you heard Michael Wilson in his interview with Paul talk about the officials. They knew this was a high penalty crew, but San Francisco had 1 penalty. So it's really hard to look at the officials, assuming it was called the same both ways. And their 1 penalty was a dead ball penalty. The Cardinals had 17, and there might have been a couple of dead balls. That you did have the unsportsmanlike conduct on McBride. There may have been another one. Again, I can't remember them when they're 17, but there were plenty of illegal shifts and false starts. I mean, for fans that may not understand how practice works, AQ, how often, like how many times a week are you running a play, a specific play, where you're monitoring the shifting, the motions to make sure that you don't have 2 guys moving at the same time or you don't have a pre-snap penalty? How much are you working on that and practicing it during the week?
Yeah, especially during individual drills, which is the first period of every practice. You hammer all the shifts and motions, all the things that maybe aren't part of the normal game plan that are just up for this week, for this game plan. You're hammering all those things. If you got timing snaps where you're trying to time up a motion with the snap, you're working that every single day just to make sure, hey, we got this right come game day. But I think the biggest thing that is of concern is also if you see that, all you have to do is just let them get set. So as the quarterback, if you see 2 people in motion, okay, cool, just let it run a little bit. Let's just slow this thing down. All right, everybody get set, freeze, freeze, freeze. Wait a sec. Now you snap the ball and there's no penalty. So I think whenever there's things like that, I think there was multiple layers of this today, and I think that's the thing that's frustrating. As a quarterback, okay, cool, the 2 receivers might be moving at the same time, but you got to be able to see that and kind of get that's your job as a quarterback, right? Like I think that's the biggest issue. And I think whenever you get these things, I think you think that in practice you're repping all these plays 10 times out a week. Bruce Arians used to get so mad because you might only get that play 1 time during practice. Now, when it comes up in the game, if you screwed it up in practice and then you screw it up in the game, you better believe you're going to hear about it on Monday, because the one opportunity you had during the week and you screwed it up, and then you do it again during the game, that's what drives coaches crazy. And I'm sure we're going to hear Coach Gannon talk about that, because it is stressed and overemphasized all week long. You can't shoot yourself in the foot. And that was what the biggest case has been of recent.
Again, turnovers an issue as well. Last week you had the 2 defensive touchdowns where Jacoby Brissett really had no chance, got hit, the ball comes out, returned for a touchdown by the same guy. Today, you had 3 turnovers. The first interception by Brissett in the first half wasn't as bad as the second one. The second one was clearly a force. And then the Higgins one, it's not as bad as DeMercado dropping the ball at the 1, but you're going into score and you cough the ball up. You got to protect the ball better than that. You got to realize if you're Higgins that guys are coming in to punch it out. And you just can't. He didn't stretch the ball out. He didn't get careless. It was a great play by the defender, but still, and at that point, would they have won the game? Probably not, but it was a microcosm of how the day went.
100%. And I think the other thing of note, too, is Michael mentioned it during his post-game presser, and the biggest thing is when you show up Wednesday for your first day of the install, they put a referee report up, and then they also hammer it again on Saturday before you go out for your final walkthrough. So you know what the emphasis is, and the referee report gives everything. Here's how many offensive holdings they have. Here's how many defensive holdings they have. Here's how many pass interferences. Here's how many roughing the passers. Here's how many this. Here's how many this. So every penalty that's called, it shows how many they've called, where they rank amongst all officials, what the percentage is, and all of the things. So it's every bit as much of a game plan that you're getting for your game plan of the opponent on the referee. So if they mention that they know these things, now you got to really clean up your stuff. And that comes down to the players during the week, because if you know they're calling offensive holding, or if you know they're calling illegal shifts, hey, we got to make sure we're good with our shifts. Hey, we got to make sure we're paused for a second before that ball snapped. Or, hey, they're big on offensive holdings. We got to clean up our hands a little bit. We can't be outside the framework. All those different things play into this. That's called being a professional.
There were several holding calls, and not that the penalties lost the game, but since we're on the conversation, you thought at least one, maybe more, were not holding calls, correct? Including the 4th down that went for a touchdown that could have changed the game.
I thought the big run should not have been called. I think it was well past the play. He was finishing the play. And sure, some fan will sit there and say that, oh, well, I saw his hand on his back. Well, any play can be called holding, because as the defender starts to turn as the ball carrier is going, he's going to turn, and your hand might turn on the back. But during the actual play of the block, your hands are inside the framework, can't be called. And that's the biggest problem with referees in this game right now, and referees amongst the league, is they scan. That's their job. They scan from left to right or right to left and whatever that may be. So they may miss what you're doing in terms of the good block and then only see the aftermath or somebody on the ground, and say, oh, well, that had to happen, so we got to throw a flag there. And that impacts the game. It really impacts the game. The holding call on Paris Johnson should never be called. I've been very loud about that. You watch the Buffalo Bills, both tackles do it 30 times a game. It's called the chop, and it's a very clean technique that most O-line coaches teach, and they teach it because defensive linemen are taught to play on their toes with their weight forward. And so if you pull the rug out from underneath anybody when their weight's forward, what are they going to do? They're going to fall down. That's the whole purpose of it. Okay, let's work smarter, not harder, right? I don't want to sit there and lean against this guy who's going to bull rush me. Okay, cool. I'll just chop his arm out and move back, and he falls down. That's a clean play. It was a great play by Paris Johnson. And those things are what's unfortunate about whenever you can put the hands of the game in the referee.
Special teams, other than the block extra point, and there was also the Cardinals had a blocked field goal that ended up being good, meaning it was blocked by San Francisco, Alfred Collins, but it went through. So you had that. You had a field goal getting blocked. You had 2 good kick returns surrendered, including the one on the opening kickoff. You mentioned this in our pregame discussion about getting off to a good start, how important that is. It's obviously important every game, but especially when you're coming off last week. Like, if you're going to really, truly erase the taste of last week, you got to play well early. That didn't happen because you gave up a 99-yard kickoff return. And some of that could be injury, meaning there are players on special teams that aren't used to playing special teams because your special teamers have been moved up now to play offense or defense. But to have a start like that, to give up a kickoff return almost for a touchdown, set the tone for the day.
It's tough. I mean, whenever you see that type of start, you wonder what's going on, especially, and we talked about all the injuries with special teams. Okay, cool. They probably wanted to see what was going to happen on that first, then make a decision. Well, they saw, and they give up the 99. Okay, that's fine. You go touchdown. Now on offense, you have to come out. You have to score, especially with what happened last week. And the minute you go down 7-0, the minute you come off of last week, now we have to say, we got to find a way to score, whether it's 3, whether it's 7. And the interesting thing about first drive always, that's the most coached up part of the week because your first 15 is scripted. Now we don't have to react to what they're doing. And so whenever that's the case, you would like to see them take off.
All right, Coach Gannon is ready. He's with Paul.
Talking about, quote, getting out of our own way. How would you diagnose what happened, especially in the penalty department today?
Yeah, I mean, they call what they call, and obviously San Francisco played a lot cleaner than we did. So I don't think it's lack of education. We got to do a better job of decision-making and technique, because, that was a penalties aren't a winning stat, but when it's that out of balance, there's no doubt that was a component of the game that we did not handle well enough to give ourselves a better chance.
And 7 flags the last 2 games combined. Now, Michael Wilson mentioned it's a high flag crew, but it goes beyond that probably, right?
Yeah, I mean, that is a high flag crew. They call what they call. We just got to do a better job of handling that because, anytime it felt like we had some chances there, in all 4 quarters really, we kind of shot ourselves in the foot, and that falls on me. We got to play with better technique and make better decisions during the game.
And I don't know if there's a turning point per se, but that first possession of the second half, 4th and 1, Bam with a long touchdown run, and then it wasn't because of the hold. And I know the fans were upset. Did you get an explanation? I know
he said he restricted them. I asked about it obviously because that cuts it to a 1-score game, and you feel like okay, you're back in the game right now. But that hurt.
And Jacoby obviously was seeing the field, right? An NFL record 47 completions. What did you see out of the offense in general? And what did you like? What did you dislike?
Well, I disliked that we turned the ball over three times. You're not going to win any game when you lose the takeaway battle 3-0. I did think that we threw it pretty good. I thought we converted some third downs. That was good. But that game got we're known pass there for a whole quarter. But Jacoby battles, like he's not going to – somebody just told me about that stat, like he's not going to be happy about it. We lost a game, but he battles, he stands in there, and he does what he's coached to do. He's going to go to work every day.
Michael Wilson just told us he got up this morning dead set on going to work. He had a heck of a game. What did you see out of 14?
Yeah, he did. I thought he played his ass off. He knew the whole week. He goes, I'm going to have to play well to help our offense, and that's what he did. He got open, he caught it, he had some explosives, some run after catch. I thought he was lights out.
Defensively, was there anything in particular that was most problematic today?
Yeah, I thought we had some chances to take the ball away. We didn't convert those. I just feel like a couple third downs, we got to do a little bit better job. Too many guys open to me. Just we got to coach that up to make sure that we're winning leverage, getting on the right people. And, when they get the ball, obviously it's unfortunate you start the game, in your own red zone, but we can't, I don't know what they were in the red zone today, but we got to make them kick more field goals. We're giving up too many points right now.
Speaking of that 98-yard kickoff return to start, is that a byproduct in part of just having different players in different places because the injuries trickling down to special teams?
Attrition piles up. We got guys in different spots, but I feel good about everybody that's on the field. We got to execute that a little bit better, not to let that happen.
We talked pregame, no Mac Wilson Sr., the quarterback of your defense, especially against that scheme. And you talked about the details, how the Niners and Kyle Shanahan are always on it. I mean, how big a challenge is that for a rookie in his second start?
Yeah, I got to watch the tape. I thought we operated. We're in the right stuff. I know, there's some things with his eyes, with everybody's eyes. We got to make sure that we stay clean. And and match rushing coverage, and they're going to look at the run game. I thought we did a pretty good job in the run game there till the very end there. Because we got into some known pass. We got to execute a little bit better on known pass.
Coach, the Cardinals hadn't lost a game by more than 4 points until the last 2 weeks. Is there a common denominator? Is there a difference these last two games?
Yeah, we're the game's been out of balance here, in the second half at some point, right? So that puts stress on all three phases to play a lot different how you want to play, and that's a credit to the last two teams what they did in those games. But until we can do that, you're playing uphill. And we have to do a better job, obviously, of being able to play straight up for 4 quarters, and then let the chips fall where they fall. But it's obviously disappointing because that game gets out of hand there, and you feel like you still got a chance to win in the second half. But we got to do better. We got to do more.
And last question, in terms of your messaging, what's most important this next week?
Yeah, I told them, we're on the mat. There's no doubt, we're on the mat. We thought come in here, beat a good football team, start clawing your way back. We got knocked out on the mat. So when that alarm goes off tomorrow, you better come into work, which they will. And the only people that are going to change the results that we're getting right now is the people in that locker room. So collectively, we got to do a good job of that.
Okay, Coach, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Be safe.
There you go, guys.
All right, Paul, the Cardinals Locker Room Show presented by Tim Hovick, Santan Ford and Gilbert, right on the price, right on the corner of the Santan 202 Freeway and Val Vista. The Cardinals lose to the Niners 41-22. We will talk to you next Sunday from here when the Jacksonville Jaguars come to town. Our executive producer is Jim Omahundro, associate producer Cody Fincher, engineers Walt Ellis and Jason Ellis, technical director Ali Narini, in-studio coordinator Matt Lazarus, Miguel Reese, our spotter, statistician Kurt Zacher, Craig Grialou, and Rob Fredrickson up next with Cardinal Talk for A.Q. Shipley, Paul Calvisi, Dave Pasch saying so long from State Farm Stadium. Cardinals giving up 85 points the last 2 games. They'll try to rebound against the Jaguars here at home a week from today. We'll have all the action for you on the Arizona Cardinals Radio Network.